So the ecology, right? Ecology, that is first chapter is organisms and population, another chapter is ecosystem, and third chapter is biodiversity and conservation. Okay, so diversity is not only a characteristic of living organisms but also of content in biology textbooks, right? uh, Content, they are using biodiversity as a content. Wow, selfish. Now biology is presented either as about a thing is as important. The essence of biological understanding is to know how organisms, while remaining an individual, interact with other organisms and physical habitats as a group, and hence behave like organized wholes, that is population, community, ecosystem, or even as the whole biosphere. Ecology explains to us all this. A particular aspect of this is the study of the anthropogenic environmental degradation and the socio-political issues it has raised. This unit describes as well as takes a critical view of the above aspects. Right now, Ramdev Misra. Now, Ramdev Misra, an old dude. So, Ramdev Misra, as the father of ecology in India, what this old dude did. His research laid the foundations for understanding of tropical communities and their succession, environmental responses of plant populations and productivity, and nutrient cycling in tropical forest and grassland ecosystem. So Ramdev Misra has a home in forest where he study all these things. He has a bungalow in forest. Ramdev Misra. Okay, Misra formulated the first postgraduate course in ecology in India. Over 50 scholarships obtained PhD degree under his supervision and moved on to the other universities and research institutes to initiate ecology teaching and research across the country. Now he was honored with the fellowships of the Indian National Science Academy and World Academy of Arts and Science and the prestigious Sanjay Gandhi Award in Environment and Ecology. So due to his effort, the government of India established the National Committee for Environmental Planning and Coordination in 1972, which in later years paved the way for the establishment of the Ministry of Environment and Forest, that is 1984. These years can be important, right? It can generally ask like the National Committee for Environmental Planning and Coordination happened in 1972. In later years, they paved the way for the establishment of the Ministry of Environment and Forest, that is 1984. Ministry of Environment and Forest, right, 1984. So organisms and populations, right? We are going to study only populations in this chapter. So as we know, so our living world is fascinatingly diverse and amazingly complex. We can try to understand its complexity by investigating processes at various levels of biological organization, that is macromolecules, cells, tissues, organs, individual organisms, population, communities, ecosystem, and biomes. So macromolecules, cells, tissues, organs, individual organisms, then populations, then communities, ecosystem, and biomes. At any level of biological organization, we can ask two types of questions. For example, so this is not that as important in anything in here. Come to the point, right? It's all not important, right? So ecology is a subject which studies the interactions among organisms and between the organism and its physical abiotic environment. So ecology is a subject which studies the interaction among organisms and between the organism and its physical, that is abiotic environment. Ecology is basically concerned with four levels of biological organization: organism, populations, communities, and biomes. Okay, so we explore ecology at population levels in here. Population levels, right? So population attributes now. Okay, we rarely find isolated single individuals of any species. Majority of them live in groups in a well defined geographical area, share or compete for similar resources, potentially interbreed, and thus constitute a population. Although the term interbreeding implies sexual reproduction, a group of individuals resulting from even asexual reproduction is also generally considered a population for the purpose of ecological studies. Now, all the cormorants in a wetland, rats in abundant dwelling, teak woods trees in a forest tract, bacteria in a culture plate, and lotus plant in a pond are example of the population. I read it again. All the cormorants in a wetland, rats in an abandoned dwelling, teak wood trees in a forest tract, bacteria in a culture plate, and lotus plant in a pond are some examples of a population. So an individual organism is the one that has to cope with a change environment. It is at the population level. An individual organism is the one that has to cope with a change environment, right? That is the fitness and all that things. So it is at the population level that natural selection operates to evolve the desired traits. So this is the population that has the natural selection where it operates to evolve the desired traits, to evolve the variation, so the adaptivity gets inherited in the next generation to get better and better. So population ecology is therefore an important area because it links ecological population genetics ecology to population genetics and evolution. So ecology is therefore an area because it links ecology to population genetics and evolution. So population ecology, this is the population ecology in which the ecology is dealing with the population genetics and evolution. Okay, a population has certain attributes whereas an individual organism does not. Individual can either birth, can either death, that's it, and can either have sex, with sex, male or female, right? And an individual may have births and deaths, but a population has birth rates and death rates. In a population, these rates refer to a per capita births and deaths. The rates hence expressed are change in numbers. Now, the rates hence expressed are change in number. These rates are change in numbers with respect to members of the population. Increase or decrease. That change can be increase or decrease. Here is an example. If in a pond there were like 20 lotus plants last year, and through reproduction 8 new plants are added. Now 8 new plants are added, taking the current population to 28. So 20 to 28, we calculate the birth rate as 28 minus 20, that is 8 upon 20. So 0.4 offspring per lotus is formed. If 4 individuals in laboratory population of 40 plus died during a specific time interval, say a week, the death rate in a population during that period is 4 by 40, that is 0.1 individuals per fruit fly per week. Another attribute characteristic of a population is sex ratio. Now another attribute characteristics of a population is sex ratio. An individual is either a male or a female, but a population has a sex ratio, that is 60% of the population are females and 40% are males. This is the sex ratio, that is 60% males and 40% male 60%, that is females and 40% males. A population at any given time is composed of individuals of different ages. Now the population has the male and female, they have the different ages. So this is the age distribution. If the age distribution percent individuals of a given age or age group is plotted for the population, the resulting structure is called an age pyramid. Now this age pyramid leads to the this age distribution leads to the age pyramid. Now these age pyramids for human population, the age pyramid generally show age distribution of males and females. Now for human population, the age pyramids generally show age distribution of males and females in a diagram. The shape of the pyramids now depending on the shape of the pyramids, the growth status of the population you can tell that. So whether it is growing, it is stable or declining. Now as you can see, representation of age pyramids for human population. First one is the expanding, it is continuously expanding. The pre-reproductive is so much, then reproductive, then post-reproductive, then stable, that is pre-reproductive, and reproductives are same, declining because pre-reproductive young individuals are even lesser than the reproductive ones. So this is a declining population. Now the size of the population tells us a lot about its status in the habitat. Now whatever ecological process we wish to investigate in a population, be it the outcome of competition with another species, the impact of B, it the outcome of competition with another species, the impact of predator or the effect of a pesticide application. We always evaluate them in terms of any change in the population. B, it the outcome. We always evaluate them in terms of any change in the population size. Okay, the size in nature could be as low as less than 10 Siberian cranes at Bharatpur wetlands in any year, or go to now in any year, right, or go to in millions, that is chlamydomonas in a pond, right. So population size, technically called population density, designated as n, need not necessarily be measured in numbers only, although total number is generally the most appropriate measure of the population density, but it in some cases either meaningless to or difficult to find. It is meaningless and difficult to find, right. In an area, if there are like 200 carrot grass, that is Parthenium hysteropas, these are the carrot grass, okay. Now plants, but only one single huge banyan tree with a large canopy, stating that the population density of banyan is low relative to that of carrot grass, amounts to underestimating the enormous role of the banyan tree in that community. If we ignore that it is only one tree, then we are just like ignoring the fact that the enormous role of the banyan tree in that community. In such cases, the percent cover or biomass. Now percent cover, how much percent is cover that single banyan tree, that matters, or biomass is a more meaningful measure of the population size. Now total number is again not an easily or adaptable measure if the population is huge and counting is impossible or very time consuming. As I know, this is why the number can give the most accurate value, but it is difficult, impossible sometimes, and it is not possible to count, okay. So this is why percent cover or biomass is most effective. Now so just like if you have a dense laboratory culture of bacteria in a petri dish, what is the best measure to report its density? Sometimes for certain ecological investigation there is no need to know the absolute population. We do not need to know absolute population densities. Relative densities serve the purpose equally well. We need relative density, right? So for instance, the number of fish caught per trap is good enough measure of its total population density in the lake. So fish caught per trap is a good way. We are mostly obligated to estimate population sizes indirectly without actually counting them or seeing them. Example, the tiger senescence, without actually looking at them. The tiger senescence in our national parks and tiger reserves is often based on pug mass and fecal pellets. They just poop, and once you get to there, once you get these poops, then you can collect all the poops, and this is how you can count them, okay. This is the tiger senescence in our park, in our national parks and tiger reserves, is often based on the pug mass and fecal pellets, right. Now the population growth. So the size of a population for any species is not a static parameter. It keeps changing with time, depending on various factors including food availability, predation, pressure, and adverse weather. So the size of population for any species is not a static parameter. It keeps changing with time depending on various factors including food availability, okay. There is competition always, predation, pressure, okay, adverse weather. In fact, it is these changes in population density that gives us idea of what is happening to the population. Now these changes, it gives us what is happening to the population, whether it is flourishing or declining. Whatever might be the ultimate reason, the density of population in a given habitat during a given period fluctuates due to changes in four basic processes. Now this population density can change with the four basic processes. What are these? And in which two of which, natality and immigration, contribute immigration to an increase in population density, and two, that is mortality and immigration, that is exit, to decrease it. Now natality, it refers to the number of births, that is number of individuals that are born, births during a given period in the population that are added. These are added to the initial density. So plus, you can see in the diagram, that is natality, B birth rate, that is plus, and then mortality, it is the death. So it is number of deaths in the population during a given period. So it is you see, okay. So you see it is negative, right, because it decreases the population. Now immigration, Immigration is the number of individuals of the same species that have come into the habitat from elsewhere during the time period under consideration. So immigration, it is plus sign. So immigration, that is exit. The number of individuals of the population who have left the habitat and gone somewhere else during the period under consideration. So it is negative. Now, so if n is the population density at time t, then its density at time t plus 1 after time t plus 1 is equals to nt, that is initial, plus b plus I, that is birth rate, that is natality plus immigration minus death rate plus immigration, right? That the population density will increase if the number of births plus the number of immigration b plus I is more than the number of deaths plus number of immigrants d plus e. Under normal conditions, birth and deaths are the most important factors influencing population density. So under normal condition we see the birth rates and death rates, right? For instance, if a new habitat is just being colonized, immigration may contribute more significantly to population than the birth rate. So immigration, that is number of individuals coming from somewhere else, that will be holding accountability more than the birth rates when the new area is being treated. Like now the growth models, now these are logistic and these are exponential growth models. So first one is the exponential growth. Now what, okay, so growth models, does the growth of a population with time show any specific and predictable pattern? We have been concerned about underlying human population growth and problems created by it in our country. So this is not as important as, so exponential growth, like resource, what are the resources? These are the food and space. In terms of food and space, availability is obviously essential for the unimpeded growth of a population. Now ideally, when resources in the habitat are unlimited, so ideally when resources in the habitat are, if they are unlimited, right, if the resources in the habitat are unlimited, each species has the ability to realize fully its innate potential to grow in number, as Darwin observed while developing his theory of natural selection. So because every individual wants to be selected by nature, so they have the full ability to fully its innate potential to grow in number. So this is what Darwin says, okay, about the natural selection, okay, and then the fitness and all that. Then the population grows in an exponential or geometric fashion. So geometric is exponential, okay, it is just kind of J-shaped curve, it goes and straight to the upward. So then the population grows in an exponential or geometric fashion if in a population size of n, that is for initial population, the birth rates, not total number but per capita births are represented as b, and death rates again per capita death rates as d. Then the increase or decrease in n during a unit time period, that is dn by dt will be, so dn by dt is equals to a b minus d, that is r into n. B minus d is the r, and then dn by dt is equals to r into n. So this is it. So population density n and time, as you can see, population growth curve, when responses are not limiting the, growth, plot is exponential, dn by dt is equals to rn. Now in here, r in this equation is called the intrinsic rate of natural increase, that is intrinsic rate of natural increase, that is each species has its uh, innate potential to fully grow in size, right? And is very important parameter chosen for assessing impacts of any biotic or abiotic factor on population size. So we can assess any biotic or abiotic factors on population growth through the r value, that is intrinsic rate of natural increase. If it's growing, then we can say like there is less limiting abiotic and biotic factors on the population growth. So the magnitude of r values for Norway red, now for Norway red it is 0.015, and for the flower beetle it is 0.12. In 1981, the r value for human population in India was 0.0205. So find out what the current r value is. For calculating it, you need to know the birth rates and death rates, okay. The above equation describes the exponential or geometric growth pattern of the population and results in a J-shaped curve when we plot n in relation to time. N is the population density T is the time. If you are familiar with basic calculus, you can draw the integral. And what is the integral form of the exponential growth curve? That is nt is equals to n naught e power rt. Nt is the population density at time t, after time t, okay, and n naught is the population density at time 0. R is the intrinsic rate of natural increase. E is the base of the natural logarithm, which has the value 2.71828. okay, so any species showing exponential under unlimited resource conditions can reach enormous population densities in a short time. Darwin showed even how slow growing animal like elephant could reach enormous numbers in the absence of the checks. The following is an this is all bullshit. It has nothing to do with anything in this paragraph. So logistic growth. No population of any species. Now talking about the reality. Exponential and geometric growth says the resources are unlimited, which is actually not possible. So this is why logistic growth. It is actual growth. Now what it says no population of any species in nature has its disposal unlimited resources, that is food and space, in terms of availability to permit exponential growth. This leads to competition. Now what does happen when this is not unlimited? Then it leads to the competition between individuals for this limited seeds or for this limited resources. Eventually the fittest individual will survive and reproduce, which is says by Darwin. The governments of many countries have also realized this fact and introduced various restraints with a view to limit human population growth. In nature, a given habitat has enough resources to support a maximum possible number. But in nature, a given habitat has enough resources to support a maximum possible number beyond which no further growth is possible. Let us call this limit as nature's carrying capacity K for that species in that habitat. Each habitat has its enough resources to reach its carrying to realize its maximum possible number. Beyond it just limits. So limit as nature's carrying capacity K for that species in that habitat. Now a population growing in a habitat with limited resources show initially a lag phase, then followed by phases of acceleration and deceleration, and finally as symptomed. When the population density reaches the carrying capacity a plot of n in relation to t results in a sigmoid curve. A plot of n, that is number density, in relation to t results in a sigmoid curve. This type of population growth is called the Wurzbach logistic growth. Wurzbach logistic growth, that is S-shape, that is sigmoid growth curve, is described by the following. Now dn by dt is equals to Rn k minus n by k. You can k for king, so king come first, so you can say k minus n by k. So dn by dt Rn k minus n by k. Okay, so n is equals to population density at time t, and then R is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, and K is the carrying capacity. Since resources for growth for most animal populations are finite and become limiting sooner or later, the logistic growth model is considered a more realistic one, right? Now life history variation. Populations evolve to maximize their reproductive fitness, also called Darwinian fitness, high R value. Now what is Darwinian fitness in terms of all these growth models? It is R value. That's high R value, means Darwinian fitness is the highest. So populations evolve to maximize their reproductive fitness so populations have evolved to maximize their reproductive fitness also called Darwinian fitness, that is high R value in the habitat in which they live. Okay, under a particular set of selection pressures, organisms evolve towards the most efficient reproductive strategy. Now under a particular set of selection pressures, now there is lot of pressures on an individual, then it finds a way of something to get better and better. So organisms, they evolve towards the most efficient reproductive strategy. Now some organisms, now this is why, like, there is a difference, like some organisms breed only once in their lifetime, because I think there is some kind of pressure. This is why they are doing it. Some organisms breed only once in their lifetime, that is specific salmon, fish and bamboo, only once in their lifetime. That's crazy, right? While others breed many times during their lifetime, that is most birds and mammals. So while others breed many times during their lifetime, that is most birds and mammals, right? Some produce a large number of small size offspring, that is oysters and pelagic fishes. large number of small size birds, that is oysters and pelagic fishes, while others produce a small number of large size offspring, but they are small, they produce small number, that is very less number, that is birds and mammals. So which is desirable for maximizing fitness. So which is desirable for maximum fitness. Ecology suggests that life history traits of organisms have evolved in relation to the constraints imposed by the abiotic and biotic components of the habitat in which they live. So whatever they are becoming, it's because there is a constraints imposed by the abiotic and biotic components of the habitat in which they live. So this is why they evolve. According to that, evolution of life history traits in different species in currently an important area of research being conducted by ecologists, not important line. So population interaction now. So population interaction, right? So can you think of any natural habitat on earth that is inhabited just by a single species? There is no such habitat, and such a situation is even inconceivable. For any species, the minimal requirement is one more species on which it can feed. So there always should be two species. Okay, even a plant species which make its own food cannot survive alone. So even a plant species which makes its own food cannot survive alone, because it requires the soil bacteria as a biofertilizer, so that they can get the nutrition and make the food, right? Atmospheric nitrogen fixation, so all that. So for any species, even the plants, right, it needs soil microbes. As I said, you see, it needs soil microbes to break down the organic matter in soil and return the inorganic nutrients for absorption. And then how will the plant manage pollination without an animal agent? Also, it's not possible to get the pollination. Okay, even if it's possible, but the majorly generally it's not possible, right? It is obvious that in nature, animals, plants and microbes do not and cannot live in isolation, but interact in various ways to form a biological community. Now it becomes the communities. Okay, even in minimal communities, many interactive linkages exist, although all may not be readily apparent. We cannot see, but there, even in the minimal communities like small communities, there always a linkages exist, right? Because one species cannot live in isolation, right? It needs something to in and out. So interspecific interactions arise from the interaction of populations of two different species. Now two different species, that is the interspecific interaction. Okay, they could be, now this could be like beneficial, detrimental or neutral, neither harm or nor benefited to one of the species or both, assigning a plus sign for the beneficial interaction, negative sign for a detrimental, and zero for neutral interaction, that is nothing happens, right? So according to that, all these interaction like population interactions like 1 2 3 4 5 6, so all these 6 population interactions, like if both the species are plus plus, then mutualism. If both the species are minus minus, that is competition. And if one species is positive and one negative, that is predation and parasitism. And then one is positive and one is zero, that is unaffected, right? Nothing happens. So commensalism, and one is negative, that is affected, and nothing happens to others. So commensalism, like a completely lost. So both the species benefit in mutualism and both lose in competition in their interactions with each other. In both parasitism and predation, only one species benefits. So in both parasitism and predation, parasitism and predation, only one species benefits, that is parasite and predator respectively, and the interaction is detrimental to the other species, that is host in case of parasite and prey in case of predation. Okay, so host and prey, these are the detrimental species, and benefited species, these are parasite and who predator, that parasitize or predate their like host and prey respectively. The interaction where one species is benefited and the other is neither benefited nor harm is called the commensalism. Okay, now in amensalism, on the other hand, one species is harmed whereas the other is unaffected. Now other is unaffected, it's untouched, that is amensalism. Now predation, parasitism and commensalism, right? Positive zero, positive zero, positive zero, all these have share a common characteristic. They interact in species live together. This is why one gets benefits and other gets other no. Just remember that the interaction species, they live together, they live closely together in case of predation, parasitism and commensalism. So this is it.